Deep beneath the canopy of the jungle, the glowhopper's luminous esker bounces through the air. Their tiny wings, while not allowing them to fly, provide nimble maneuvering over the large pools where they nest. Its defense mechanisms so captivating that all but the strongest of wills fall prey to its magical glow. And while primarily their diet consists of large insects they catch with their long sticky tongues, they have been known to lure unsuspecting travelers to their death. Today we're checking out the Glowhopper. This is made by the Dragon Trappers Lodge. They make amazing models all of the time and release quite regularly as well. I really like the concept of the Glowhopper. It's like a cross between an anglerfish, a frog, and a two-legged dinosaur all mashed together. Like, I can imagine this creature actually existing, and the detail in this design as well is just amazing. There's little wrinkles and warts on it that you can see, and it just really adds to the immersiveness of what this model is. The models are pre-supported for printing, which makes that so much easier. The dangling bulb is delicate, so you do need to be careful when taking off the supports and just interacting with it in general, as it is a very thin piece of plastic. Overall, I'd give this model 4.5 stars out of 5. It's a great model, it was easy to print, fun to paint, and a lot of fun to design for, so let's get into it. For the painting, I wanted to try my hand at OSL painting, which is object sourced lighting. Here's an example of what OSL painting is on a quick render. You can see the light emanates from the bulb. It casts shadows across the wings and onto the back, and this is what we'll be aiming for. We're starting with the extra dark green on the lily pad. And dark Prussian blue for the water. Highlighting on the edges and raised parts with an intermediate green. And again with uniform green. Just adding layers to help create some depth and change the colour. For the water, I touched the higher spots with a dark Prussian blue with some white mixed in. And then again, lightly touching some white on the higher spots of the ripples. Once I'm happy with how the base is looking, I use some super glue to glue the Glowhopper and base together. Hold together for 20 to 30 seconds and you're good to go. For the Glowhopper itself, I'm going for very dark colours at first, and then adding the glowing light and brightening up areas that are exposed to the light. We'll start with extra dark green for the main skin tone, and then London Grey for the underbelly skin tone up to the bottom of the jaw. Once I'm happy with the base tones, I'll move on to the glowing light. To start with, I'm using a mix between the dark Prussian blue and white. And the areas I'm painting are quite reserved at the moment. Only points that can be directly seen by the glowing bulb. And as that continues, I let that start bleeding into areas that may not be in a direct line, but are at least very close to it. Areas that would appear to be where the light would reach. And expanding the effect across the front of the model and the top of the wings. And as time goes on, I get more and more bold with it. Across the top of the head, the front of the thigh that's sticking out, I also want to start blending in some more colours, so slightly darker blues in the areas that I expanded to, and lighter blues that are in the direct line of the light that I identified at first. It's then just a process of adding lighter colours to the highlights and darker colours to the shadows and blending those together. It could be 5 layers, it could be 50, but really it's up to you to when you think it looks like a good balance of blending. It was at this point in time I was looking at the model from a distance, and the dark green back looked almost black and the details on the skin were being lost. I went back to the darker areas and added a light dry brushing of the intermediate and uniform green just to add that tinge of green back in and make the skin pop out just a bit more so it wasn't looking as flat. With that done, I added some blue as a reflection from the light to the base of the model. I also added a thin dark blue to the edges of the light and shadow to blend those together as the light fades into the darkness. Once I was happy with the blends, it was time to add in the eyes. Just some straight black paint over the eye instantly made a huge difference to the model. And with that done, it was back to a final blend to bring that all together. And with this, I felt the final blend was done and I'm ready to display. So in my mind, the Glowhopper is going to be a swampland style of creature. The base, the tongue, the glowing light, these things all lead to that kind of environment. And I was also thinking that its primary food source is probably going to be a large insect of sorts. And you can imagine the glowing light lures it in, and then they grab it with the tongue. But for this to be a creature that enemies can fight in Dungeons and Dragons, it does need to be somewhat potent against killing characters. So the Glowhopper's light would draw creatures in like they're hypnotized, which in 5e I think the best condition for this would be stunned, which is where a creature can't move and they're also incapacitated, which means you don't get any actions. And this should function in a similar style to the Medusa's Gaze, where players can choose to look away to avoid making the save, however their attacks then become a disadvantage. And this gives players a sense of risk and reward in how they approach the combat. Now this is a good baseline of where to start with for designing this creature, but I also think it needs a little bit more. I wanted there to be a reason for the little wings it has. They're obviously not large enough to fly with, but I did think they could use them to skim across the surfaces of something that would typically slow a creature down. So when we tie all of these things together, we have a creature that can skim over swampy terrain, of which others would surely sink into, and if they get stunned while sinking into the quicksand or something similar, your players are going to start to drown or become trapped. So with this addition to the Glowhopper, the creature suddenly becomes much more deadly. The eggs are somewhat of a plot element. They're not required to be included, but they can add additional plot and tactics to the encounter. For example, an NPC could be poisoned and then only be able to be cured by this particular egg. This also places some urgency and some limits on the use of the egg. Tactically, this could force players to actually cross into quicksand or a swamp for an objective, as the eggs could be kept safely on a little island where they nest. The Glowhopper's stats are a reflection of how I imagined the creature to be. It's not overly strong or weak, but it is mobile and dexterous in its environment. It's a creature known for poisons and healing properties, and it doesn't come across as something I would consider particularly fragile. Its intelligence, wisdom, and charisma are all in the typical range for what magical beasts and animals would be. For its actions, the Glowhopper has a multi-attack. It can make one bite and one tail swipe on its turn, where the bite does some piercing and poison damage, and the tail swipe does some bludgeoning. In summary, the Glowhopper is a great miniature to paint. It gives you a chance to learn more about OSL painting, and with the stats I've created, is a fantastic creature to run in Dungeons and Dragons. Thanks for watching, and until next time, keep on painting.